AskReddit by Zeg685. What do you think of the parents that kick their kids out as soon as they have turned 18 years old? My mum kicked me out at 16. When I got advice to go on a independent youth benefit, they had to contact my mum to basically say she didn't want me. She turned round and said that I can come back whenever I want. So I was denied financial support. Then I found out she had moved to another island. I don't talk to her much. So she straight up wanted you to suffer? Fucking hell. Dad didn't want to have kids. Once we were 7 or 8 years old, my mother pretended to still like us, but she didn't seem to, had more independent personalities. I believe that many past generations had children more out of obligation than out of a genuine desire to be parents for the rest of their lives. That's an absolute fact. Not just having children out of obligation, but marrying the first person you can out of obligation to have said children. This person who you may not even like, making children you don't even really want. Source: my parents. Deleted. That's one of the most cold and heartless things I've read on Reddit. Your brother did so not deserve this. Neither of you did. I hope life is better. Brother was out before 18 and I was out at 18, and my dad didn't even have a funeral. Should tell you about all you need to know about parents who kick their kids out ASAP. I'm not even sure if my father is alive or dead. I could probably find out, but I really don't care enough to check. Kicking out your kid as soon as you're legally allowed to do so tells me you wanted them out of the house even earlier, and the only reason you didn't do it is because you didn't want to be arrested. I think people who do this never actually wanted to be parents in the first place. My BF got kicked out at 18 and his parents literally said to his face, "Since you were an accident and we didn't mean to have you, we need you out of the house now so we can actually relax like we used to before you were born." In a way, I think extremely badly of them. Since you're 80, I'm gonna need you to die ASAP since you'll never wanted to be around me in the first place. I can't imagine having to deal with that. My dad lost a place to live at his parents' house for the summer his last year of college, and luckily my mom's parents let him stay in their basement. From what my parents told me, my dad was devastated by this. My parents' rule was we would have a place to stay without paying rent as long as we were in school or after we graduated while we were getting our first job. I really appreciated their support and not needing to worry about housing during the summers while I was in college. We'll be doing the same with my 3 kids. Boomer parent here. Our 2 sons were welcome to live at home as long as they wanted, as long as they were going to school and or working. My oldest is 31 and married. He lived at home for 9 months after he graduated from college, then moved in with his now wife after she finished school. Our younger son is 27. He flunked out of college, spun his wheels for a bit and got sidetracked by the pandemic. He got off his butt, went to community college, got his associates and was just offered a full-time job with benefits. He'll probably be out within the next 3 months. We have no regrets. They're not Italian, that's for sure. Here in Italy, when the child is finally ready to leave the house at the age of 35, the family gets together to bid them a tearful goodbye before they move 1 kilometer away from their parents' house. Deleted. Great candidates for a nursing home in their later years. I wonder how many parents realize their relationship with their kids is somewhat quid pro quo. It feels a bit sociopathic of me to say, but take care of your kids and invest in their futures and lives. Rewarding in itself, yes, but ultimately, one day, you're gonna be old and unable to wipe your own ass, and if your kid hates you, he's not going to do it. Hell, I love my parents, but I still am not looking forward to those times. I went to school with some people like that. Immediately kicked out at 18. How can they expect to continue their education when they now have to immediately start making enough for food and shelter? Inevitably, most got married and divorced or at least pregnant young too. Now 20 years later, the ones I'm friends with on Facebook are continuing the vicious cycle by kicking their kids out at 18. Come on bro, give them a chance. And you complain your family doesn't have generational wealth. This is why. Lol, my mother's excuse was, well, when I was 18 I was paying for my own apartment while going to college and working part-time at Taco Bell. The fact that she never finished college WND ended up a miserable stay-at-home mom was lost on her, I guess. My parents are foster parents. They're my bio parents, but they've been doing foster care all my 30 years of life, and they don't kick out the foster kids when they turn 18. When children's aid stops supporting them, usually at 18, my parents step up and help the kids until they can comfortably move out or until they want to. They have a 25 years old still living with them because she fears abandonment and my parents don't want her to leave lol. They love each other. My parents helped out over 20 kids throughout my life to try to become successful human beings, no matter how long it takes. Many of them are still in contact with us. We took them in and loved them. How can parents who raise their own children kick them out just because they reached adult status? I just don't get it lol. Your parents are legends, helping and improving 20 lives plus I'd assume raised their own kids, pretty well. Probably tough having a rotation of kids coming through, but I'm sure it taught you a hell of a lot. My older brother was a complete narcissistic asshole. He would hit me often and told me, if I told my parents, he would kill me. He was constantly causing problems with my parents. My father told him that on his 18th birthday, he could have breakfast in the house, but his lunch was going to be on the front porch in a paper bag, so pack a suitcase. My father was true to his word. One of the greatest days of my life. Deleted. My parents were divorced for at least a decade before I turned 18. But my dad was still trying to force my mom to kick me out at 18 with no place to live. This was interesting considering my dad's mom bought him a house to live in after he turned 18. I swear the guy wanted to make my life as miserable as he could, even though his parents spoiled him. He still rubs in my face how much my grandparents gave him while refusing to give me a penny and expecting me to feel sorry for him. Have to love narcissistic alcoholics and the never-ending mindset of a selfish 16-year-old in a boomer's body. It's an absolutely horrible way to start a life. Yup, literally feels like you're level 1 in a game. You got nothing but the clothes on your back and it sucks. I remember finally moving out of the car and into a 1-bedroom apartment. Felt so good having our own place, my GF now wife and I. I remember we slept on the floor and used all of our clothes as a blanket and pillow. We taped together Walmart bags for a shower curtain. I remember making a frozen lasagna and not being able to take it out of the oven because we didn't have an oven mitt or towel to grab it. I'd never let my kids start their adult life like that. Guess who's going to the shitty nursing home? Guess who's not gonna pay to put them in any nursing home? Generally speaking, I'd say those parents don't understand the reality of the current economic landscape and that unless they made a Herculean effort, they probably didn't set their kid up properly to do well. Not to mention that during most of history and in the vast majority of cultures, leaving home at 18 just was not a thing. You generally stayed at home until you married, whatever age that may be, and even after you might still live with your parents, or even if you have your own home you'd be very closely connected, often still working the same land together, etc. The idea that people are supposed to move out at 18 and make it on their own, when they're still 4-6 years from full mental development BTW, is by far the exception rather than the rule historically. I told my wife just the other day that I wouldn't be surprised if the US began to culturally revert back to multi-generational living being the norm again due to the housing situation. My dad did it a bit differently. His rule was I had to be doing something. I got 90 days to figure it out. If I'm in college school, I lived with them for free. Once I started working, it was $400 a month to stay. My dad basically framed it as you can save money here as long as you want, but when you want to get your own place you're welcome to do so. You will always have a place here. I've never met anyone who does this and is also a decent human being. They are always like, kids gotta learn to stand on their own 2 feet. I don't care if my kid is homeless and gets assaulted. Life's not fair lol. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps like I did when my dad gave me a company in 1973. It's terrible. My fiance's birthday is the 26th of December, a day after Christmas. On his 18th birthday he was told by his father he was now an adult and had to go. No warning or anything. He had to move into his car that same week. And yet, 25 years later, his father has the audacity to continuously ask us for money to pay his bills. I hope you didn't give him a penny. I was raised by a single father. He wasn't the best. He always told me, I'm kicking your ass out of the house for your 18th birthday. He said it my whole life. Out of spite, I told myself I would start planning for college and a job and an apartment and work toward it all through high school so it wouldn't catch me off guard. Imagine my displeasure when he went to prison at the beginning of my freshman year and I had to figure all that shit out 3 years earlier than I'd expected. Imagine further that you didn't find out until you were 18 that he opened multiple accounts, phone numbers, electricity accounts, water, etc., and never paid them off or told anybody after he went to prison and just expected it all to work itself out somehow. It didn't. It fucked me out of student loans with reasonable interest rates. It fucked me out of getting a cell phone until I was 22. My credit is still dog shit. Fuck you, Dad. They should have bought a dog if they want the thing gone by 18. You're 18. You're on your own. Don't ask us for anything, because we don't owe you any more support. 20 plus years later. I know we made it clear that we won't do anything to help you, but now that you're successful and have something that we want, grandchild, we're willing to amend that agreement so that family is super important to us. It's so lonely after we drove everyone away. They are shitty parents. My daughter is going to be 18 tomorrow. This world is difficult enough for full-grown humans, why do that to a young adult? This thread is giving me closure. Thought I was a dickhead for feeling the way I do. Had to pay half my salary after I turned 18 to my parents to rent the room I lived in for free until then. Still treated like a child though and still do all my chores. The amount was equivalent to renting my own small apartment, but idiot me did not realize at the time. When I left that job, because I had ambition for something more, I got kicked out at age 20 with his exact words, "I don't know what to do with you. Go." Left for the city and mostly didn't have a place to sleep, no food, nothing. Fortunately I could crash at my girlfriend's place, now wife. Put myself through uni part-time and now an accountant. I have basically no contact with my family anymore. I feel this is especially cruel post 2005. Back in the 90s it was probably way easier to survive. I'm from LA and a guy I met once said that in the 70s you could actually live on your own with a job at McDonald's. In Missouri I was a 911 dispatcher and it paid $8.50 an hour. I was night shift. After I got off work I would go to a gas station for my second job to pay bills while my wife stayed home and took care of our first kid. I can't imagine a 18-year-old having the discipline to basically go from a school schedule to working 2 jobs and dealing with the workplace bullshit at both of them without quitting. They're fools, selfishly setting up their children for a life of unnecessary hardship and struggle. I think they're bad parents. They clearly don't understand what the world is like for recent high school grads. They are selfish and want their home back and don't want to keep feeding and housing their kid, and or they didn't raise a self-sufficient child ready to try fending for themselves. Asshole move emo. They aren't parents. They are birthers that kept a human alive at the bare minimum. My birther used to tell me all she legally had to provide was bread and water, so anything above that was considered a kindness she didn't owe me. I work in homeless services, focusing on transitional aged youth between 18 and 24 who have been in the foster care system or probation camp. The amount of youth who I have worked with who get kicked out at 18 is disgusting. As soon as they turn 18, the checks for fostering youth stop and the foster parents no longer feel incentivized to house these youths, regardless of the bonds formed. So out you go to make room for another paycheck to come in. To top it off, neither the foster parents nor the system prepare these youths for the reality ahead. They are extremely financially illiterate and have no idea how to navigate life. It's so sad and depressing. It's trashy behavior and bad parenting. Your role as a parent doesn't suddenly expire when your child turns 18. It also shows an unhealthy relationship to your child, as if there was some kind of burden that you're counting down to be rid of. Now, if a kid goes to college or something and moves out at 18, different story. But children should always feel that they have a place in their family's home, regardless of their age or what life might throw at them. Depends on the reason. My cousin got booted out at 18 because he was cooking meth in their house and stealing shit to pawn. I feel that him getting the boot is reasonable. Wasn't even a discussion. Somehow I turned 18 and was given a plane ticket voucher and nothing else. Not a cent, no advice on how to adult, no real direction. So I couch surfed instead until I found work. Then moved away. My 18-25 was nothing but a struggle. I genuinely can't remember any point during that time where I felt like I had a handle on life whatsoever. And now I just don't talk to them anymore. It's been years. I've had family come to me with the "they're your parents, they did the best they could" bullshit. It just sucks, knowing that your parents don't love you.